Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and tonight I'm going to talk about the oligarchy. Now, when we talk about oligarchs, we're looking at more of the people who are the elitists, or they deem themselves the elitists because they have the money, which is the power, and they want to control how the world moves. You have people like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and others. Now, is an oligarchy or an oligarchy a form of government, or are there oligarchs in the government? Well, if you look at the two parties today, you look at the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Now you hear the term MAGA, Make America Great Again. Donald Trump brought that term in, and I'm going to get into that next topic, maybe next week, called the populist. See, it used to be, when I was coming up, that the Republicans were the friends of big oil, big pharma, all types of big business, and the Democrats, they were your unions. Now, I don't think they're not oligarchs who are your union bosses either, because they're there. But the Democrats were the party of the working people. Now, some people, particularly a number of women out there, believe that socialism works. It's true. Well, what they don't understand about socialism, socialism is a philosophy that creates, in my humble opinion, all these social programs. In other words, the taxes are confiscated from the working people, given to the government, and the government determines who gets the social programs. It's like a distribution of wealth program. But if you think about socialism and even communism, the people that benefit are always at the top. So basically, even with the authoritarian types of governments, you have some form of crony capitalism involved. This is why the capitalist system doesn't always work. But you also have to have the mindset to understand the capitalist system. Now, this is not about capitalism. It's about oligarchies, and we're dealing with people for the rich. You have Bill Gates. You have people like George Soros. They're very, very, very rich, and they control the world from their standpoint. You have Bill Gates talking about how to decrease the population. You have George Soros. He spent a lot of money trying to buy votes for the Democrats. And some of his resources went into 200 radio stations. George Soros owns it. Some of your DAs. George Soros paid their salaries. Now, what I'm going to do is share my screen, and I'm going to get into what is an oligarchy or an oligarchy and the characteristics of an oligarchy. Now, an oligarchy is a political system where power and authority are concentrated in the hands of a small group of individuals, or we can say a single class. Now, this group, often referred to as oligarchs, can hold power due to various factors, such as wealth, family connections, military strength, or political influence. So unlike a democracy where power is distributed more broadly among the population, or an autocracy where power is held by a single individual. Oligarchy, saying oligarchy, centralizes control within a select few. Now, here are some key characteristics of an oligarchy. Let's look at the concentration of power. And generally, your power is held by a small group rather than being distributed amongst the populace. And as I mentioned before, gave you a couple names: Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. You have a number of politicians. They have a lot of power and influence, and they typically have significant resources and influence over political decisions. See what the Democratic Party has. They called in all the celebrities. Now, it didn't do them any good, but they had the power and influence. And when you have an oligarchy, there is limited political participation. So basically, if you are the peasants or the general public, have little or no direct influence over governmental policies or leadership at all. So we just have to take it, even though we have the numbers. Now, this election proved a little different. We had the numbers. So we, actuality, now, did we beat the oligarchs? I'm going to say by numbers we did, by money we didn't, but we had a few oligarchs on our side. Donald Trump, he's an oligarch. Elon Musk, Dana White, they're oligarchs. In other words, they have the power because of their wealth. And then we get the perpetuation of control. That's right, that's the perpetuation of control. That means power often remains within the same group over generations, maintaining their dominance through various means, such as basically it's economic control or political manipulation. Now, the historical context of oligarchy starts with the ancient, we call it the ancient Greece, because the oligarchy is a form of government that dates back to ancient civilizations. So in ancient Greece, city-states such as Sparta were ruled by oligarchies, where power was vested in a small group of elite citizens. These leaders made decisions that affected the entire population, often prioritizing their interests over those of the common people. This is what our government does. Now we have modern oligarchies. And when it comes to the modern era, oligarchies have taken various forms. Some countries, despite having democratic institutions, experience oligarchic tendencies where political power is disproportionately held by a few wealthy individuals or families. And those examples are straight. Russia, where a small group of wealthy business magnates known as oligarchs exert significant influence over the government and the economy. Now, when it comes to the social perspectives on an oligarchy, we deal with functionalism. So, from a functionalist perspective, an oligarchy can be seen as a means of maintaining order and stability within a society. And by concentrating power within a small group, decisions can be made efficiently and constantly. So basically, you have the rulers at the top and the peasants at the bottom, forming a structure. And again, that concentrating power lies within a small group, so decisions can be made in an effective manner and they're made consistently. However, functionalists also acknowledge that this power, which is concentrated, can lead to social stratification and inequality, and that can destabilize the society over time. And this is why here in this country you have some individuals that believe in socialism. They think that's going to make everything equal, and it's not, because there's always going to be conflict, because the conflict theorists view oligarchies as a manifestation of the border struggles between different social classes. And according to this perspective, oligarchies rise when a powerful minority seeks to protect and enhance their interests at the expense of the majority. This leads to systematic inequalities and perpetuates the dominance of the ruling class. Well, you do have, and this is why you see a number of the individuals who we call elitists at the top. They basically want to protect their own interests, and they don't want to share the wealth. And when you go into companies like Walmart, who's getting all the money? What are fat cats at the top? The ones at the bottom, they don't get anything. And they're treated like slaves. And this is because the individuals who are at the top of the pyramid for Walmart are the stockholders, the investors. They care more about their interests because they're investing more money into that company. Now, when we get into symbolic interactionism, well, symbolic interactionists focus on the social interactions and symbols that sustain oligarchic rule. They examine how oligarchs maintain their power through social norms, cultural practices, and control over information. This perspective embraces the role of ideology and propaganda and legitimizing the oligarchs' authority. Again, the oligarchs, they're the ruling class. And here are some examples of oligarchies. Russia. In contemporary Russia, a small group of wealthy businessmen and political elites wield significant power. These oligarchs have close ties to the government and often benefit from policies that favor their economic interests. The concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few has led to significant social and economic inequalities. Then we go to ancient Sparta, which Sparta is in ancient Greece, and that is an early example of an oligarchy because the city state was governed by a small group of elite warriors known as the Spartiates. Spartiates basically were a ruling class and they controlled the political, military, and economic life of Sparta, often prioritizing their own interests and maintaining strict social hierarchies. Then we have modern corporatocracies. A modern corporatocracy. And some argue that certain democracies exhibit oligarchic tendencies, particularly when corporate interests heavily influence political decisions. In such scenarios, a group of small corporate leaders and wealthy individuals can shape to favor their interests, leading to reduced power for the average citizen. Disney, who owns all the media? People like Disney. Jeff Bezos, he owns Amazon, but he also owns the Washington Times. Who owns MSNBC and NBC? Xfinity. Who owns Microsoft? Bill Gates. And their decisions influence government officials because they can also influence elections by buying votes. Now, the impact of an oligarchy on society, again, social inequality, one of the primary consequences of oligarchy, and exasperation of social inequality. And that's when power is concentrated in the hands of a few. Policies and decisions often favor the elite, leading to disparities in the wealth, education, and opportunities for the general population. Then there is political corruption. Oligarchies are prone to political corruption as the ruling elite may use their power to enrich themselves so they can maintain their control. This can undermine the rule of law, erode public trust in institutions, and stifle democratic processes. Then we have limited social mobility. So, in oligarchic systems, social mobility is often restricted. Why? Because the ruling class maintains its power through various means, such as controlling access to education and economic opportunities. So, this prevents individuals from lower social strata from advancing, and it perpetuates the existing power structures. Now, here's some challenges and criticisms of oligarchies. And one of the main criticisms of an oligarchy is the lack of representation for the general populace, since decisions are made by a small group of people. The interests and the needs of the broader population are often ignored or underrepresented. This can lead to a widespread discontent and social unrest. And this is why, when you are in the peasant class, if you have some money, you may want to join a lobbyist group or try to form a lobbyist group on your own, because in politics, particularly here in America, if you have an issue, you have to be well organized and well financed. And this is why the alphabet community, and they're a small minority of people, put their names on the map. They organized very well. They had an issue. They had the right politician or the right politicians in power, and they utilized their resources, their economic resources. And when we get into economic exploitation, oligarchies can also lead to economic exploitation, where the ruling elite exploit resources and labor for their gain, and that includes unions. This exploitation can result in poor working conditions, low wages, and inadequate social services for the majority of the population. And through history, there have been resistance and reforms. And many societies have resisted the oligarchic rule and sought to implement more democratic forms of government or governance. Social movements, revolutions, and reforms have often emerged in response to the injustices perpetuated by oligarchies. These efforts aim to redistribute more power equitably and to ensure broader participation in the political processes. As I conclude, again, oligarchy is a form of government where power is concentrated in the hands of a small group, often leading to significant social, economic, and political inequalities. So, what you must know is how to understand the dynamics of oligarchies, their historical context, and their impact on society. And it's very crucial for addressing the challenges they pose. So, by examining various sociological perspectives, again, you must examine various sociological perspectives. And once you do that, we as a people, or we who are doing the research, can gain insights into the mechanisms of power and the importance of striving for more inclusive and equitable systems of government. And like I said before, a lot of your education, your religion, and this all ties into the 5 power conferences of society that I always mention. And if you don't know what they are, it's your education, your media, your religion, your jobs, and your government. Now, people who are on the employment side might say, well, unions. Unions also have oligarchies because all you are when you're in a union, yes, you may get certain parts of your union, they might do something. But do you think the union bosses care? No, because they need you because your members, your membership makes them money. And when you go to work, places like Walmart, Target, particularly in your retail sector and your hospitality sector, you have some areas where you have a lot of stockholders. And if you are an employee, they don't care about you. In fact, they can get rid of you and get somebody else the same day because they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about their own economic interests. And when you go to church, religion is another form of an oligarchy. These pastors with these big churches, Creflo Dollar. You got a number of other ones out there who make big money off of religion. And now I believe in God, but religion, for the most part, has always been used to control the masses of people. Why? Because when you get a number of people who don't read, who don't research, who can't articulate a point, they can be easily influenced. And the one gender that is easily influenced more than the other gender, women. Women are your big consumers. They're your big consumers of education. They're your big consumers of religion. And a number of them are also on social media. This is why a number of your women, they're Democrats. In fact, the number of women out there, they're against any type of capitalism. Why? Because they believe that they're not well represented. Now, you have a number of Black people who believe they're not well represented either. It is true. However, you also have to look at individuals' mindset. If you're one that is just going to work to be an employee, well, that's all you are as an employee. Not everybody is going to be wealthy. But here's the thing. If you want to be inclusive, particularly in politics, you don't have to get involved on a federal side. This is what you don't know. If you have a small business and you're local, you can also use a form of oligarchy to influence people to vote for that politician. Small businesses, you can get yourself a small umbrella, your own chamber of commerce, and you can make or break a politician's career. A small business is really 70 to 80% of the business here in this country. But you have to know how to do it. Education. You don't have to send your child to public school. You can homeschool because you have a lot of oligarchies in the education system. Education system is very, very flawed. We get into that later on as well. But basically, when we deal with oligarchies, we're dealing with individuals that are very, very wealthy. And in the end, they only care about protecting their own interests, care about you. They may act as if they care about you. Doesn't matter what party they're from. They just believe that what they say goes, and they want to keep lining their pockets with your money. And in the end, you know what I call that? I call that welfare going up. Now, I know not every rich person is bad, because it does take rich people to take risks. For the ones who are taking the risk, creating jobs for people to work, I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about other individuals who utilize their power and greed to rule a society, and they're ruling society because they want to keep that power. But in the end, oligarchies are in the five power conferences of society that I mentioned. The corporations dominating the USA. In fact, the United States is one big corporation. But that one big corporation is made up of the culture that is spread into religion, the media, the government, your job, and your education, known as the five power conferences of society. In the end, when it comes to oligarchs, oligarchs always want to keep you at the bottom, because they want to maintain their social and political influence, because in their minds and in their attitudes, they believe that the ruling class is at the top, which it is true. The ruling class is at the top. But let me take it further. Because of their economic and political influence, they believe that they're better than the populace. Why? Because they want to destroy the populace. They want to keep the populace ignorant. And they know they can buy the government. If you don't believe me, that's what the Democrats did. That's why they didn't win. When it comes to oligarchies, oligarchies will continue to keep you poor. If you don't understand how the system works. And a lot of your oligarchies, they're in a lot of your baby boomers and a number of Gen X personnel. What you have to do is understand how oligarchs work. In the end, the oligarchs believe that they're above the law. They can buy themselves out of any trouble by influencing the justice system, the political system. Why? Because they have the economics to influence people in our government. But in the end, let's remember this: oligarchs, people just like the peasants. If you don't believe me, there's some oligarchs buried in that ground, and they took that corruption with them. And I will also tell you this: in their mind, they think they are the rulers. But in the end, oligarchs are human, just like the populace. So remember, you may be here on earth right now as an oligarch, an oligarch. But just like me, you can't take it with you when it's time for you to check out. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 401 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, check my second channel out, which I do videos every Thursday, sometimes Friday. That's the QCIS channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, here's where you can find me. 401 Talk Zone radio show. This is my main channel. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, which is X, True Social, and Rumble. And for the QCIS channel, you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, which is X, and LinkedIn. And in the end, be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, just change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.